What's going on YouTube, fam? This your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of the Baltimore Way, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For the day one, fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Oh yeah, definitely share the channel with your peoples. Everybody is welcome. Let's get right into the story. As grown-ups, we all know that the world and the people in it could be cold and dark. But to gain that understanding, you have to go through experiences and life lessons. But no one starts off thinking like that. When we are young in our teen years, most are optimistic about starting life. At that age, certain things don't even exist or register in your world. By no fault of our own, we are young, still green, and wet behind the ears. Once we live a little more and mature, we see things not only in our environment, but in people. You start to understand personality traits or what to look for. Like, I'm not hanging with them down the street because they be on cruddy type time and like the backdoor people. The only way you would know that, though, is by seeing them cross a person. But in a lot of environments around the world, we grow up seeing so much or experiencing so much in our neighborhoods, you might become used to being around individuals you might know that's not right or have good intentions. Most feel like as long as they don't do it to me, we good, using that as a false sense of security. It's crazy to believe, but for most, the thought never clicks that the people we look at as family or friends will put us in harm's way. You think to yourself, this my peoples. I know what type time they are on, but they would never do that to me. But in reality, none of us really knows what nobody is thinking or what they are really capable of until it happens. But unfortunately, by that time, it's too late. And on this episode of the Baltimore Way, we'll be taking it all the way back to 2011 to discuss a case of a man's trip to his neighbor's house that led to his strange disappearance. Back in 2011, Ryan Jackson, nicknamed Lil Fred by family and friends, was an 18-year-old man living in Lansdowne, Baltimore County. Ryan was well loved and liked by everybody in the community. Said to be a humble soul who left positive energy on everybody he came in contact with, including his childhood sweetheart, a young lady named Jasmine. Jasmine and Ryan had grew up together since babies, and now, both in their teen years, they were living with her family and also had big plans for the future, which included their first child together, as Jasmine was now pregnant. The young couple was excited, and Ryan looked forward to being a new father. On Wednesday, October 12th, 2011, the couple woke up early and headed to a doctor's appointment to see how the baby was doing. After finding out all was well, they headed back home to the 800 block of Seckel Court. Ryan and Jasmine ate lunch, then around 3 p.m., he told her he was going around the corner to hang with a few friends, and he would be back shortly. The friends he was referring to was Larry Horton and his wife, Angelina Horton. Ryan was much younger than the couple and was friends with their son, but sometimes hung out with Larry, who was his friend's stepfather, when he wasn't around. Larry had a bit of a past, a few run-ins with the police for drug cases and assault. He had just came home from serving a little bit of time in Anne Arundel County Jail. A man who we will call Tim allowed Angelina and Larry to live with him at his home in the 700 block of Rambo Court, a block away from Ryan's home he shared with Jasmine and her peoples. Tim knew Angelina since they were kids and wanted to help the couple get on their feet. The day when Ryan came by, he spoke to a few people around the way he knew and began chopping it up with Larry. But back at the house, Jasmine started to grow concerned. When dinner time rolled around and Ryan still wasn't home, it was around 8 p.m. Out of his character, she called him, but his phone went straight to voicemail. She continued to call his phone in spurts between 8 p.m. and 12 a.m. with no answer, and Ryan still not home. Feeling something wasn't right, she fell asleep. But the next morning, after Ryan's phone still was going to voicemail, she went through the neighborhood posting flyers with his picture, description of his tattoos, and other information. as her and her family felt Ryan was missing. She walked over to Larry and Angelina's home to ask if they had seen Ryan or knew what time he left their house. At first, Larry said he saw him talking to a man close by, but then it started raining. So Ryan ran in the couple's home to get out of the rain, but only for a few minutes before leaving. But over the next 2 days, Larry's story kept changing. Jasmine felt something was off. Tried to look past the married couple to find more information about Ryan. The search continued, and it kept leading her back to Tim's house, where Larry and Angelina lived at on Rambo Court. On Friday, October 14th, Jasmine and her mother filled the missing persons report out with Baltimore County Police. Later that afternoon, they walked back around the corner to see if anybody in the neighborhood had any information on Ryan, just to see Tim pull up to his house with Larry and Angelina inside the car. Larry quickly hopped out with a carpet cleaning machine, and Angelina had a hospital gown on with multiple bandages on her arm. Tim dropped them off and drove off. When Jasmine approached the couple, Larry brushed her off again with a different story this time than before. She and her mother went home, but the next morning on October 15th, Jasmine and her family got up around 6 a.m. to continue their search. They quickly got word some neighbors saw Larry and Angelina quickly leave in a truck about 3 a.m. that morning, carrying multiple bags as if they were moving out. A group of people from the neighborhood and Jasmine and her family went back to Tim's home and knocked on the door. Confirmed the couple had moved out, but then someone in the group asked could they step inside. In the home, the carpet was soaking wet, and the whole house smelled strongly with cleaning supplies. Multiple people saw what looked like blood stains on the wall and around the living room area. After that, Jasmine and the group left and called the police. When Baltimore County responded, Tim told them what Larry had told him, that Angelina had cut herself after an argument and then started swinging her arm back and forth, causing the stains to be in the living room. The police somehow bought the story at face value and never looked inside the home. By this time, Jasmine and the community was for sure something happened to Ryan. Once the police left, the group continued to search the local park, walking down to the Royal Farms at Hammond's Ferry Road, asking questions, before one person walked back to Tim's home. They opened the trash bag they saw behind the house. Inside was a blanket with black hairs on it and blood. Thinking they found evidence, the group called police again, who told them it was consistent with the story Larry had told Tim about Angie slicing herself. Police took the blanket and left. On that same day, around 2 p.m., a person passing by a wooded area off the 5500 block of Pennington Avenue in Curtis Bay found the body. They called Baltimore City Police. They responded to the scene to find out that the person was, in fact, the missing man, Ryan. It seemed the young man was suffering from multiple cut wounds and was unfortunately already gone. Now with that, police obtained a search warrant to search Tim's home. Inside, bloody curtains were found and trash bags, items with blood on them, including a hatchet, empty bottles of bleach, and Ryan's wallet. After hearing the horrific news her child's father was gone, Jasmine and the community walked around to Tim's house to see police carry out a couch with an imprint of a body, which everybody knew that had to be where the incident took place. As the autopsy was done, it showed defensive wounds like Ryan was trying to fight off an attack with deep gashes to his body. The hatchet was pointed out as the weapon that took the young man's life. Police spoke to Tim, who claimed to be confused about the whole situation and claimed Larry had lied to him the whole time. He allowed the couple to stay there, but he stated he worked all the time. And on Wednesday, October 12th, the day Ryan disappeared, he got off at 10 p.m. He came home but didn't notice anything unusual. That night, Larry asked him to borrow the car to take a toy to his mother's house in Brooklyn Park. Claiming he had no idea, that's when Larry took Ryan's body to dump it. The next day, Tim stated Larry told him he wanted to do a deep clean of the house. So he took him to pick up the carpet cleaning machine and then to pick up Angelina from the hospital. So at that time, he thought everything Larry told him was legit. He claimed he never even knew Ryan had came by that day and definitely didn't know his home was a possible crime scene. With that, warrants was put out for Larry and Angelina, but the couple was MIA. As Jasmine in the community mourned Ryan, he stated the young man was so excited about becoming a father, and if it was a boy, she would get a baby his name. The young lady was hurt, and especially after the couple was located miles away in Alabama and taken into custody. Larry, 37 years old at the time, was charged with first-degree hit, and Angelina, a parole violation, as it was determined it was Larry's doing, and the reason was all to rob Ron to get more money just to get high. After Jasmine in the community heard that, a man he considered his friend and knew for many years would do that over drug money, it added salt to their wound. He stated if Larry just would have asked Ron for the money, he would have gave him anything he wanted. In the end, Larry was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. I'm not sure if Angelina received any time, as it seemed she only participated in certain events at the mercy of Larry and was an unwilling participant. Rest in peace to Ron. I send my prayers and condolences to his family. Hopefully, Jasmine had a healthy baby and was able to let them know how much the community loved their father and how excited Ron was to be having a child. I'm going to leave this one open for discussion. Let me know what the moral of this story should be and what y'all think about the situation in the comments. Yeah, man, crazy story. I ain't never really heard too much about this case. It's an older situation, so I just thought I would bring this to y'all attention. Y'all definitely let me know what y'all think. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. This another episode of the Baltimore Way. It's your boy Tony 2 times. I'm out.
It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another episode of the Baltimore Way. In this video, I'll be taking it just 30 minutes north of Baltimore to Edgewood, Maryland, to discuss the fatal end to an on-again, off-again relationship that lasted 17 years between Tanasha Sienna and George Moore Jr. But before we get into this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any more stories like this or any future uploads. And of course, feel free to share this video with everyone you know. Also, if you'd like to see more episodes in the Baltimore Way series, please click the link to the playlist in the description box after this video to get caught up. All right, let's get right into it. Tanasha Sienna was born in San Diego, California. She was a military kid and moved around quite a bit. While moving around caused some kids to struggle with making friends, Tanasha was the opposite and was very outgoing and made friends easily. After graduating from high school in 1997, Tanasha went on to attend Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina. During her freshman year, Tanasha would end up meeting and falling in love with a junior who attended North Carolina A&T right next to Bennett College. His name was George Moore Jr. 20-year-old George was 2 years older than Tanasha. He was very outgoing and intelligent. He majored in electrical engineering. George took his studies seriously and worked hard to support himself through college. Tanasha and George's relationship took a big step when George introduced Tanasha to his family. Then just 5 months after meeting, Tanasha moved in with George. In 1999, George and Tanasha welcomed their first son together. Tanasha stopped going to school and worked to support their child. George got another job on top of the job he already had to support their son and continued going to school. Around this time, the relationship between Tanasha and George was hitting a rough patch. George graduated from North Carolina A&T in 2001 with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. George had multiple job offers, but ultimately accepted an offer from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland. By that time, George and Tanasha were seeing other people. He moved from North Carolina to suburban Baltimore to start his career. 3 months after the move, Tanasha went to Maryland to be with George. They got an apartment together in Laurel, Maryland. Just because George and Tanasha were living together in Maryland didn't mean he wanted to be exclusive with her. And with that, Tanasha decided to move on and moved to DC in 2008. She landed a sales job with AT&T where she made upwards of $80,000 to $90,000 a year. Now that Tanasha was able to support herself and her son, she didn't need monetary support from George. However, that didn't stop George from being an active father in their son's life. His son was the most important thing in his life. Tanasha appreciated George's dedication, and the two co-parented well for the most part. Although separated, Tanasha and George would hook up from time to time and sometimes go on dates together. One of those hookups led to the birth of their second son in 2010. After their second son was born, George invited Tanasha to live with him. They purchased a house together in Edgewood in 2011. Tanasha and George seemed to be working towards being a family with their two boys, but the reconciliation was anything but that. George and Tanasha slept in separate rooms in the home they shared together. They were not in a committed relationship. George would see other women, and Tanasha was free to see other people as well. Tanasha may have tried to be okay with the arrangement, but she would become extremely jealous when George met other women. Tanasha would do everything to sabotage George's relationships. She would vandalize his property, like keying his car or busting out his car windows. Despite all of that, George never spoke badly of Tanasha, and he never pressed charges. He focused on the good he saw in her. In 2014, the dynamics between George and Tanasha began to come to a head. In April of that year, George went on a cruise without Tanasha. George ended up meeting a woman on the cruise, and they formed a friendship that evolved into a romantic relationship. When George and his new woman got back to Maryland, they started spending lots of time together at her place and took trips to Atlantic City. Tanasha was livid that George had started spending all his time with his newfound love interest. She felt like too much of his time was taken up and he wasn't spending enough time with their boys. Tanasha blew up George's phone with calls and texts when he went to Atlantic City with his new girlfriend one weekend. In May 2014, Tanasha once again kept calling George while he was spending the night at his girlfriend's house. When George kept ignoring her, she drove to the girlfriend's place and demanded that George come out and talk to her. She kept pressing the buzzer to the building and yelling profanity, calling the woman out of her name. Tanasha kept saying she wanted to save her family. George finally came out and left in his car. George made it very clear to Tanasha that he had met his soulmate and that he was going to be with this woman and she would have to accept it. George and his new girlfriend had plans on getting married and building a life together. George was very much a giver and put himself last. He gave everyone the best while he would settle for purchasing his clothes from the thrift store. In this new relationship, George's girlfriend encouraged him and helped him to start investing in himself. George agreed to leave Tanasha the house and of course continue to take care of the boys. But Tanasha said she told George that she would take him to child support and move with the children to North Carolina. She claimed George didn't like that. Tanasha believed George agreed to their living arrangement to avoid paying child support and thought that's why he wouldn't really ever leave. But she saw that George was serious about his new relationship. Tanasha became enraged and drenched in jealousy. On June 2nd, 2014, at around 7 p.m., Tanasha had just come back from getting dinner with the kids. George came home and went upstairs to his room, where he would usually go lay down and rest before dinner. Tanasha told her teenage son to take his 3-year-old brother to the park and return in 30 to 40 minutes. The 14-year-old thought the time frame was odd because she never did that before. He was used to having to leave the room if his parents were going to argue, but never a time frame. The oldest son was about to leave the house when he doubled back to grab a piece of chicken they got for dinner. After he reached for the chicken, he heard pow pow. He grabbed his little brother and went to the park. As the teenager was about to return home, their neighbor stopped him and took him and his brother to their house instead. 911 received a call from Tanasha reporting an attack and a shooting. Tanasha said she shot the father of her child, George Moore Jr., and claimed self-defense. When Harford County law enforcement and EMTs arrived at the scene, they found Tanasha with injuries to her eye and the side of her face. George was found in his bedroom, wounded in the head, lying slightly face up, propped up on a pillow. He was pronounced gone on the scene. Tanasha was taken to the hospital to be treated for her minor injuries. She was released shortly after and was taken to the station for questioning. Tanasha told detectives that her and George got into an argument about the amount of time he was spending with his girlfriend and not enough for their boys. She told detectives that George got irate, came after her, and put his hands on her. She claimed her injuries were from George hitting her head against the dresser over and over again. She said when George stopped, she went towards the dresser drawer and grabbed a weapon and told George if he didn't stop treating her like that, she would use it. Tanasha told detectives that George wasn't fazed and threatened her and came after her once again, and that's when she fired at George. But when detectives had a chance to speak with Tanasha and George's oldest son, he told them he hadn't heard any argument prior to the shots. Detectives found that the home hadn't seemed to be in disarray more than it already was. Detectives began to doubt Tanasha's claims. She was subsequently arrested and charged with first-degree hit and weapons charges in connection to George's slaying. George's family couldn't believe that Tanasha would go this far and take George's life. The family took Tanasha in as one of their own. They said George never thought that Tanasha would hurt him and that George would never hurt Tanasha. George didn't believe in putting his hands on a woman. Detectives also interviewed people who knew George. They described Tanasha as crazy and obsessed with George. Colleagues of George spoke of an incident where Tanasha had wounded herself on the lip and told George she would call the police and say it was him if he didn't leave a bar with her. She didn't want him to be with anyone else. If she couldn't have him, no one could. They believed that Tanasha's motive was driven by jealousy that George was moving on and not self-defense. Tanasha went to trial in April 2015. The prosecution cast doubt on Tanasha's self-defense claims. They showed the jury the physical evidence that Tanasha's injuries may have been self-inflicted and that she had done it in the past. Several witnesses were called to the stand, including George's girlfriend, along with George and Tanasha's oldest son, who testified against his mother. Tanasha also took the stand in her own defense. She even demonstrated for the jury what took place the night George lost his life. With all the evidence and all the testimony, the jury deliberated and came back with a guilty verdict of second-degree hit and a weapon violation. Jurors didn't believe that George's slaying was premeditated, but also didn't believe Tanasha's claims of self-defense. She was sentenced to the max for both charges and received a total of 50 years in prison. Tanasha will be eligible for parole in 2040 when she is 60 years old. May George Moore continue to rest in peace. My belated condolences to his family. I send them my well wishes. And to George's and Tanasha's boys, I hope that they are well. Tanasha and George were off and on for 17 years. That's a long time. I believe that George was really just trying to do the right thing when it came to being a father. But unfortunately for Tanasha, George did not want to commit to her, and it seems like he was honest with her about that. And she seemed like she chose to accept the terms of their situation. But to me, it was under the guise that George would always come back to her and they would live happily ever after one day. Then when George told her he had found his soulmate and she had to accept that, I believe that is what caused Tanasha to snap. Imagine after all those years of her successfully sabotaging his other relationships. And now his new relationship was moving forward, whether she liked it or not. And then to fake her injuries, causing her self-harm, that's next level. It reminds me of the movie A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. Hell knows no fury like a woman scorned. Fam, tell me your thoughts and opinions on this tragic story in the comments below. All right, fam, that's it for this episode of The Baltimore Way. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm out.
What's going on, YouTube, fam? This your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of The Baltimore Way, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For the day one, fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Share the channel with your peoples. Everybody is welcome. Let's get right into the story. If you live long enough, you start to understand no place is really safe in this crazy world we live in. If you believe in something bigger than what's around you in a physical form, then you might rely on a higher power to help you navigate and be at peace. But even understanding we all gotta go one day and we all are on borrowed time, it's just certain places and things we all do in life that's about as safe as it gets out here. For example, you might hear a lot of individuals say I avoid drama by getting up, going to work every day, and then going home. If I want to turn up or have a drink, I don't have to go to a lounge or club. I can do so at the crib where I know for a fact I'm good at. Both of those locations sound pretty accurate as safe havens. At your job, doing something productive, making money, or in a sanctuary or your own house, ducked off to yourself. But anywhere where you got to deal with or be around other people, it's open for things to occur. As we are only in control of ourselves, how we feel, move, think, and react to our emotions, like frustration and anger. You might go to your job every day, been there for years, know everybody, and do your work, get your bread, and stay low. But we have all had that one coworker that either seems a little thrown off to the point you tell yourself, like, yeah, I gotta watch out. Or they might single you out if they are problematic to be the person they want problems with. And no matter how humble, laid back, and quiet you are, if certain people target you as an enemy, you gotta watch yourself, even in the safety and confinement of your workplace. And on this episode of the Baltimore Way, we'll be discussing a recent tragedy of a man who was slain by a co-worker in the break room of their job. Anthony Day was a 32-year-old man living and working in Baltimore, Maryland. Said to be a peaceful, humble soul, always with a book in his hand or a notebook writing down ideas or trying to learn new things. The man had big dreams and was all for the betterment of his peoples and community. Anthony loved nature, planting fruits and vegetables, being in tune with himself and his environment, known to make friends easily or hold a conversation with anyone, even a perfect stranger, willing to listen, take notes, or debate if you wanted to discuss certain topics. The young man often was at work at a company in Baltimore that's considered to be a pretty good job, McCormick's Logistics Center in Sparrows Point, where Anthony had worked for a good bit of time. His job description was a distribution technician. The company, of course, we all know, makes spices and other items, but also ships products and trade worldwide. With a solid foundation, good job, embedded in his community, it seemed Anthony had a whole lot to be thankful for. Of course, we all know you can't control who your job hires if you yourself is not cutting the checks. So McCormick, being a well-paying spot, always had people anxious to get a spot and get into the door, including in January of this year, a 50-year-old man named Andre Hubbard. Andre, originally from South Baltimore, the Cherry Hill area, was in the same field or line of work as Anthony, warehouse and logistics. The older man held down a few different jobs at some pretty good companies around Baltimore and the surrounding areas. That was according to his LinkedIn profile. So to get into McCormick, he decided to go through Randstad, which is a temp service. For those of you that's not familiar, it's a third-party company to help individuals find a job. You get them your resume, they match your experience and qualifications to companies they work with that's in your field. If you get hired, the temp service get a percentage, but it's definitely a good opportunity to prove your work ethic. And usually after a probation period, if you do good on the job, you get hired on directly through the company and make more money. Andre seemed like a typical middle-aged man trying to survive out here like all of us. Other than a run-in with police decades ago in the early 90s, where he was charged with kidnapping an ex-girlfriend from a Glen Burnie movie theater at gunpoint, all the way back in 1991, where the man was just 19 years old. He was convicted in 1992 and served time for that. And like all of us who made mistakes in the past, he deserved a second chance at life. After being hired as a temp to work at McCormick's, it seemed Andre had some good motion going on, and Anthony's position was already solidified at the company. The two men worked the same shift at the facility. After about a month and a half at the job, it seemed for whatever reasons, Andre had found issues with Anthony, either pertaining to the job or personal. But as we all know, if you have an issue with a coworker, you try to stay out their way, or them stay out your way. So y'all both do your jobs, get paid, and you don't let nobody trick you out your position and livelihood, especially if you are Anthony and Andre is just a temp. But no one could imagine what would happen next. On January 16th of this year, Anthony had a shift to work. So he got ready, did his regular routine, and headed to the job. Working that night as well was also Andre. As co-workers all chopped it up in a break room, Andre kept staring at Anthony with a grit on his face. As Anthony tried to brush it off, after a few minutes, about 9 p.m., Andre got up from where he was sitting at, pulled the knife from his shirt pocket, walked up to Anthony, and stabbed the man twice, while saying, "Told you I was going to get you." Co-workers who witnessed the situation were in shock as Andre fled the scene. Baltimore County Police was called to the facility to find Anthony bleeding from what seemed to be wounds to the upper body. He was rushed to a local hospital in critical condition. Back at the company, co-workers of both men stated Andre was geeking, just staring at Anthony for minutes like he wanted to fight, but nobody was expecting him to pull out a knife. They all claimed he said to the man, I told you I was gonna get you after the fact for fleeing the scene. The situation was caught by cameras in the building, and the search began for Andre. Anthony fought hard until about 4 o'clock in the morning, where unfortunately he would pass away from his injuries. No one knew a motive for the attack or what the men had been beefing about, or if Anthony thought it was an issue that serious at all. Andre went on a run for a few days before eventually being tracked down and taken into custody. Held at Baltimore County Detention Center, charged with first-degree hit, along with some other charges. The temp service and McCormick both agreed to give police any information they needed to help with the investigation. Anthony's family and friends were all in shock. The man, known to be a peaceful soul that worked, studied, and did things like watch anime and shows like The Office, seemed to not be confrontational or have an angry bone in his body. As of now, this case is brand new and hasn't made the trial yet, and Andre is innocent until proven otherwise. Rest in peace to Anthony. I send my deepest prayers and condolences to his family. I don't know what the issue was or why Andre decided to target the man, even how he allegedly did it all at work, on the clock, in the break room, around cameras and witnesses. He must have felt the issue he had was that deep. It's unfortunate that places that we assume are safe are not even really that. Nobody thinks I might lose my life at work unless you do some kind of dangerous job. Andre was only at the company for 40 days. I know for a fact some people don't even feel comfortable conversating with coworkers until after like 3 or 4 months, until they really get to know you, the vibe, and politics of the company. To go from work to a cell is crazy. I'ma leave this one open for discussion. Do y'all think this was a work dispute or something deeper? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Yeah, man, crazy situation. Rest in peace, Anthony. I definitely send my prayers to his people. But I ain't gonna talk too much more about this one. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. It's another episode of the Baltimore Way. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. It's your boy Tony 2 times. What's going on, YouTube, fam? It's your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of the Baltimore Way, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For the day one, fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you're feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. The bond between a father and his daughter runs deep. When you have your baby girl in your arms at a young age and she gives you a look of feeling protected and secure, it's something us fathers hold on to and know it's our job to make sure our baby girl keeps those feelings, even as they grow older. Of course, we have to discipline, correct them when they are around, and pick them up on game, whether it's about little boys or just life in general. But once they become adults, start living their own lives and making their own decisions, as a parent, all you can do is pray they live their lives in a productive way and not put themselves in any compromising position to bring any harm their way or to get in any trouble. Sometimes, once a child grows up, that same little girl might be different. Whether the streets take over or life makes them a little rough around the edges, some fathers lose their bond because that once little baby girl has their own journey to take on as a now grown woman. But some parents ride with their kids all the way, right or wrong, and feels like whatever the situation is, call me and I can help you make it right. But in some situations, it's not always that easy and things get wild. And on this episode of the Baltimore Way, we'll take it all the way back to 2013 to discuss a case of a daughter who enlisted the help of her father to set up her homeboy. Back in 2013, Erica Banks was a 27-year-old woman living in Middle River, Baltimore County. Erica was navigating adulthood and had a pretty decent support system with friends and family. Also her girlfriend. To make bread, she would sell grass from time to time, cop a little weight, flip it herself, or put a few friends on. One of her longtime homies was a 26-year-old man from Curtis Bay named Darren Bell. Darren was a big dude at 6'7", over 300 pounds. The young man had a fiance and was looking forward to raising a family, as he had not too long ago had a child. Erica decided to one day call Darren, like, yo, I got a few zips for you if you want to make a few dollars. The young man, not really wanting to get his hands dirty, agreed to take the product, but he passed it along to one of his mans so he could get it off and bring the money back. But things didn't go as planned. A few days later, Erica called Darren, like, yo, where the bread at? Let's make another flip. But he told her my mans got jammed up with it and he couldn't pay her the $200. This made the young lady furious, and even though Darren was her homie, she felt he was trying to swine her and take her off. A few weeks would pass by as she saw a post on his Facebook and felt he was cracking slick, indirectly talking about the situation. Knowing he was a big dude, she decided to call some enforcement. A 24-year-old man named Tremaine Calhoun. Tremaine was known for putting hands on people if needed to and helping out friends in street situations. Erica stated, like, yo, I feel like my man's Darren playing with me, so I'm going to invite him out, get him drunk, and you could beat him for me, just to teach him a lesson. Tremaine said, all right, I got you, no problem, just let me know when. The young lady also called her father, who she was very close to, 47-year-old Eric Banks, who knew his daughter could be a little hot-headed. He told her, just be smart about the situation and play it right. On January 26, 2013, Erica called Darren, like, yo, let's go out, my treat. Not knowing she was feeling some kind of way about the pack, he stated okay. He let his fiance know, and Erica picked him up. They hit the club. She made sure she kept the drinks flowing, to the point Darren got tipsy. As the club closed at 2 a.m., she stated, it's still early, let's go out Dundalk. She texted Tremaine, who was at a bar out their way, having drinks with a friend. She picked him up. Tremaine and Darren didn't know each other, and earlier that night, Erica never mentioned the grass or Facebook. But now that Tremaine was in the whip, he asked Darren, like, yo, what was all that you was talking on the internet? He brushed it off and stated, it wasn't about you, chill out, shorty. After 45 minutes of sitting in the whip, asking questions, Erica played it off, like, oh, all right, it ain't about nothing, let's ride. Now the next day, late into the morning, Darren hit his fiance, like I should be home shortly, but Erica had other plans. First, she drove to a closed gas station, got out the car, and made a few calls. Tremaine peeped the move and figured out, oh, that must be yo she was talking about. Then she drove to Tanya Cove Road out Glen Burnie. It was a wooded area. She told both men she had to use the bathroom and step out the car. She then asked Darren to grab something out the trunk for her. Erica grabbed a small 25 and aimed it at the man and tried to shoot, but the gun malfunctioned. Darren didn't even see the move. Now about 3 a.m., she stated, let's go. They rode around to another gas station. This time, this one was open. Her and Tremaine got out the car to discuss the plan, while Darren stayed back, not knowing what was going on. She then called her father Eric and texted him a picture of Darren. The store clerk heard the two plotting, and eventually Darren walked in. As they saw him, Erica and Tremaine walked out the store. The clerk told Darren, like, yo, something not right. I think they trying to rob the store. Then asked the young man, was he with them? He stated, yeah, you geeking. They just talking, and walked back to the whip. Darren started questioning Erica, like, yo, when you gonna drop me off? She stated, I gotta run by my mother's house real fast. She went to the home and picked up a duffel bag. Little did Darren know it had another gun in there. She then stated, dag, yo, I left my girl keys in the woods out Glen Burnie. Let's go back real fast. Now Darren knew something was shaky. As he sat in the car, he quietly called police and whispered, track my phone. I think I'm being set up. Once they pulled up to the woods, they told Darren, like, yo, come help us look for the keys. He got out and another car soon pulled up. It was Erica's father, Eric. While walking towards the woods, Darren called police again, saying, I think they trying to kill me. Seconds later, a shot went off and he screamed out, Erica shot me. Then the line went dead. Local police, who now had the location, quickly responded to find Erica and Tremaine calmly sitting in her car. They asked, "What y'all doing out here?" She stated, "I had to go to the bathroom." Seconds later, Eric walked out the woods, asking, "What y'all doing with my daughter?" Police noticed blood on the man, and he was wearing gloves. They searched Erica's car before one police walked towards the woods. Inside, they found Darren, suffering from gunshot wounds and stabbed over 20 times. Unfortunately, pronounced gone on the scene. All three, Erica, Eric, and Tremaine, were taken into custody, charged with premeditated, first-degree hit, weapon charges, and more. While in custody, Tremaine decided he wanted to take a deal for his testimony. He claimed Erica called him just to fight, but things went left when her father pulled up. After she shot Darren, he said he helped her hold the big guy down. Then Eric asked Tremaine for his pocket knife and started slashing the man before telling them empty out his pockets. He insisted he never knew it would go that far. His charges was dropped to conspiracy to commit a hit. During court, Tremaine took the stand and told the events. Also, Darren's fiance told the courts about the dispute over the grass. The 911 call that Darren made was played, hearing the man saying exactly who was responsible, yelling, "Erica Banks set me up." Eric's lawyer in defense took a different approach, claiming Eric was the one always making sure Erica didn't do anything stupid. They stated he purposely broke the gun that was in her car. That's why I wouldn't shoot. And he had 3 more guns from her, but when she went to her mother's house the morning of the shooting, she found them. They stated Eric rushed to the location to prevent the hit from happening, but it was too late. But with Tremaine's testimony, in the end, the father and daughter were both sentenced to 30 years. Erica accepted an Alford plea, not admitting guilt, but admitting the state had enough evidence to convict her. Tremaine will receive 25 years for his role. Rest in peace to Darren. I send my deepest prayers and condolences to his family. I'm gonna leave the moral of the story to this one up to y'all. Let me know what y'all think about the situation in the comments. Definitely be respectful. Yeah, man, crazy situation. Rest in peace to that young man. I send my prayers to his family. I ain't gonna talk too much more about this one. This is another episode of the Baltimore Way. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. This your boy Tony 2 times. I'm out.